CBS News projects that Bernie Sanders is the winner of New Hampshire's first-in-the-nation Democratic presidential primary. The Vermont senator thanked his supporters shortly after CBS News projected his victory.
He won New Hampshire with a less comfortable margin, but was still able to hold on to his tight lead over former Mayor Pete Buttigieg and Senator Amy Klobuchar. CBS News' Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto, joins us now with a breakdown of the night. Anthony, my man, good to see you. Glad you're still awake. Senator Sanders had a lead over all the other candidates throughout the night. But what made the race so close?
Well, Vlad, good to see you, too. Let me show you the map here. That's where the story really starts. Everything you see in purple are towns that Bernie Sanders won, and everything you see in blue are towns that Pete Buttigieg won. I'm going to take you into the southern part of the state where most of the population is. And I'm going to zoom in here to show you a couple of cities, because this is where it really starts for Sanders, around Manchester, around Nashua, while Buttigieg wins a lot of the towns surrounding them. But between the young people in the cities, the blue-collar vote in those cities, that's where he kind of ran up the score and also made up a lot of his statewide margin. So that's one of the things that really kept it close, or at least put him over the top, Vlad.
So you talked a little bit about some of the locations. I think that, people who are watching politics have said that part of the reason why this field is still sort of blurry, we can't figure out exactly who will be the true frontrunner, is because no one seems to be expanding their base, right? So in regards to Sanders, was he able to make any inroads in areas with voters that don't typically support him?
That is a great question. And, I would just point you to this percentage here, this almost 26%. That's about where he has been. Excuse me. It's about where his polling was. So to answer that, the answer right now seems like no. He's got rock solid support, and that has been helpful. He's got the most enthusiastic voters, and that has been helpful. But I will take you over here to the exit polls that we did last night. Show you the folks that he won. It starts with the very liberal voters. We knew that. We knew that that was the core of his support. And younger voters, under 45, he won them too. That has been the core of the support. But can he grow? Can he go beyond that? If the field isn't as fractured, can he get into the 30, the 35%? That, I think, remains to be seen, because, Anne-Marie, let me show you by contrast the voters that Pete Buttigieg won. This also from the exit poll. Voters with incomes over 100,000, plenty of them in New Hampshire. He won them. And then the late deciders, the people who broke late on this, didn't go to Bernie Sanders. They went to Pete Buttigieg. They also went to Amy Klobuchar.
Right. So that was my question. I'd asked Caitlin Huey-Burns about it earlier, but I think you're probably better suited to answer this, Anthony. The three major center-left candidates, that's Buttigieg, Klobuchar, Biden, 53% according to some numbers, and Sanders Warren, 36%. What does that tell you?
Yeah, there's kind of a fight right now for what was the Joe Biden support. After folks started to see, or started to feel, I should say, that Joe Biden couldn't necessarily win when his electability started to go down, now you've got your Amy Klobuchar, you got your Pete Buttigieg, sort of fighting over what's left of that. And you look at those late deciders, I'll scroll past this, they were half the electorate. And that tells you something about where that support has gone, because it's post-Iowa, and it's post that debate that was so pivotal. And then it's, okay, let me scroll you over here, Vlad, and I'll show you. Those late deciders, they went to Klobuchar and they went to Buttigieg, much more so than to Sanders, and that's where that what was Joe Biden's support is going. They're a little more moderate. They're liberal, but they're not as liberal, and they also, Vlad, they don't want a Democratic Party that is necessarily going to be more progressive than the Obama era was. They're more on the side of, when we ask people, do you want to return to the Obama era? That was defining Joe Biden when he was doing well, and it's starting to define that part of the party now where Klobuchar and Buttigieg are doing well.
Right, so those numbers are just so interesting to me, Anthony, because when you're talking about more than half of the New Hampshire vote going to those moderate establishment Democrats, can you extrapolate any of that for the rest of the country, or is New Hampshire, as they love to say, very unique in the way that they vote? I just find that kind of interesting that more than 50% is going to the Klobuchar, Buttigieg, Biden folks, and Warren and Sanders are way below that.
Yeah, I think that split is going to be what defines the party going forward. We will hear plenty of talk about demographics, and those are important. When we get to Nevada, we're going to talk about Hispanic voters. When we get to South South Carolina, as many have talked about already. We're going to talk about the African-American vote, all of which is important. But there's also what it is that people want, and that cuts across demographic lines. And that split, I'll scroll into this one too, that split I talked about, that return to the Obama era, doesn't mean they're not liberal, doesn't mean they're not progressive, but that's what they think the party's message should be. You see them, like I said, going to Buttigieg and Klobuchar, but that other part of the party that wants somebody who will be more progressive than the party has ever had. Okay, they want more liberal policies. You look at that giant lead Bernie Sanders has among them. Now, to Pete Buttigieg's, at least for him, building up, he gets at least 20% of them. That keeps him in the mix. And then the key might be, can he start to straddle those two groups? But really, that's the Bernie Sanders core. And that, I think, is going to be the split and the argument that starts to define the party in these upcoming states.
Fascinating. Anthony Salvanto, as always, fascinating, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.